Okay, so welcome to the latest devlog for Froglet Games. I am Matt Plotecker. I am the senior project manager here. I am joined this episode by Will. And Will, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Will. I do QA, instructional design, and video-related things here at Froglet.
Angelo, would you like to introduce yourself, my friend?
Hi, my name's Angelo. I've been here for a few weeks now, about a month. I am currently the lead of 3D modeling, so that's basically all I've been dealing with as of late.
Awesome. And Garrett, why don't you introduce yourself again? We know who you are, but do it anyways.
Garrett, CEO.
And it's that fast. So we're going to go ahead and catch up on some stuff. Let's go ahead and start with Will. You can go ahead and tell us some of the stuff that you've been working on.
I've been working on videos for the new user interface that we're currently implementing. I definitely lost a lot of progress because I obliterated my operating system due to a bunch of errors that I thought were not going to be errors, and they definitely were, and I had to reinstall, and the reinstallation went bad, and I lost a lot of files. Be that as it may, that's my primary project. And otherwise, I'm kind of staying available for QA anytime it comes up, which is always a very, very fun activity.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully I remember when when you had that problem with the computer, and we were like, "Oh, that's not good." So,
Not good at all.
glad that part's over at least, and that you've got through that.
Yeah.
Angelo, how about you tell us what you've been working on over there?
Sure. I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So currently been working on the Sparrow ship. Have a lot of pieces, but throughout going through it, we have this right here so far. And I'm working on the animations right now. Here's like the fully textured look in Blender. And we currently have so this is the idle animation, for example, and I'm setting up like the speed down, so wings expand a bit. Speed up animation, it goes into like a dive bomb stance and the wings pull in. I can't find a good way to show that off right now with all these animations together, but you can kind of get the idea. You have a turning animation here. This is like the left turn. And yeah, so just been working on getting this all done so I can import it into Unity. There's been a few other ships along the way, little secret boys, but we don't talk about those right now. But yeah.
I have a quick question for you. When you were doing the design of this, did you have a lot of what was I looking for? Solo development in terms of like you were like, oh, I kind of want it to look like this, or did you like talk with Grace at all in terms of how you wanted to look? Like how was I'm kind of curious the process that you went through to actually go ahead and get this particular design because it's beautiful. I love it.
A lot of it was talking with Garrett. I usually just hop in the chat every day and I do 3D modeling just with my screen being shared. And Garrett gives me like tips and like what direction he's kind of thinking of while I'm going along. So this graveyard of pieces you can see is a lot of like the different like wing shapes and like things I was saving and reusing or moving around. And I've deleted a lot of it, but this is kind of what's left over. So there's a little bit of a process that happens going through all this. So kind of it starts at like a concepting phase of just like kind of shaping out like the block out, and then after that I feel like I can pretty quickly get into like a finalized piece of what like the main look is going to look like. So a lot of Garrett's input, I guess, is how I would paraphrase that.
That's cool. So I think that's fantastic. It looks great. We have a lovely video that you gave us of the time lapse stuff, so I'll see if I can maybe put that in here a little bit, but it'll be nice actually to release separately as well because it's fascinating to see the whole thing getting built up over time.
Angelo, before we go shift gears, can you show off some Squirrel as well?
Yeah.
They haven't seen that either.
So this is the Squirrel file. This one had a lot more concepting that was done for like
Oh,
the
wow,
shapes
yeah.
and stuff.
It's like an airplane graveyard. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's all graveyards around here. But this is like super basic shapes of stuff I was just playing around with. Random things
Basic?
kind of get into
I
the
don't know about
mix.
that.
That's a little scorpion, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, little scorpion. And then kind of just like experimenting with similar shapes and getting vibes for like the tail, like head shapes, body shapes,
Oh, nice.
wing shapes, random variants. And this is kind of where we started to get onto this idea of like this squirrel wing kind of flaps that hang off, and then it kind of evolved. And then over here is where the pieces started to kind of get finalized, and this is what we ended up on. So that's a squirrel, squirrel ship that we're working with right now. It has, so that's the idle animation. I guess I can just show really quick. The speed up animation, it it does this like outstretching thing to kind of give the the look of it, it's speeding up. Speed down, it scrunches up and puts on the brakes. It's got the rolling animation, so rolling left, which I can go behind it to kind of give more of what you see. Rolling left,
Oh, cool.
rolling right, much more
Nice.
obvious when you're
there we
behind
go,
it.
yeah.
These are like
Yeah.
gradient depending on how much you're rolling and or like how much you're slowing down. Like if you're like 50% slowing down, it's like kind of scrunched. But if it's like 100% slowdown, it's like ultra scrunched.
Yeah, so when it's put into Unity, it has the system we're working with right now. It has like the gradient of how much input you're doing is correlating to like how much of the animation you're seeing, which we're still trying to work with to get it going. But yeah, so this is the scroll that I was working on when I first came on. This was my first project I did.
Let's go ahead and hit it up with the big stuff. So, Garrett, you want to tell us about what you've been cranking out?
Yeah, we've been. So normally I like to have some kind of wow factor thing to show off during these vlogs, but normally it's just kind of what I lean toward anyway, and I'm working on something geometric or animated or something gameplay wise to play around with. But I've been eating my vegetables and working on a lot of the necessary systems. So something we talked about a while back was as much as like over a year ago, it was a pie in the sky idea where we said, God, wouldn't it be great to have a theme manager where we could just define the palette in a single file, and it would just, every single color in the whole game would be respected. And then we could have a palette for every single type of visual impairment, color blindness, mood, what have you. You could have kind of a Western feel with a sepia tone or et cetera, et cetera. And so it's been a cool idea. We thought streamers would really like it because they'd be able to stream with an aesthetic that really kind of matches the vibe of their channel, etc. And so definitely something that we've kind of planned for and hoped we would get to, but I kind of collided with this effect we were working on, where as you move, as blocks get occluding the camera and your ship is far away, in the case of the Serpent, then we have this maze that we're working on that you want to be able to navigate, and there's all these blocks that are getting in the way. So we started to make them fade in and out, and to make them fade, I need to be able to switch to a material that can go transparent temporarily while it's in that fade zone, but then switch back to something that's fully opaque, so that we're not paying the cost of transparency, which is a more costly effect for the majority of the blocks in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So to do that, I needed to basically make a transparent version of every different material that we encounter with blocks, which is a lot because there's a lot of different states with shielding and danger blocks and different teams, etc. So instead of taking on the challenge of making a transparent version of every material in the game, I took on the challenge of making that dream of the color by the theme manager. So we built it, and it's not quite respecting every color, but all of the team colors, all the domain colors that were already being swapped out. Now, instead of having 4 versions of every material, we have 1 version, and then we have something. I'll share my screen. We have now this scriptable object that Will graciously, one of the tasks he took on recently was saving off every single color in the game that we currently had. A designer pick every one of these colors within Jade or Ruby, and all these are doing different things depending on what kind of a block it is and communicating. So they're all sitting within a domain palette, but they're all a different color for a different purpose, a different explosion, etc. So Will managed to save off every one of these materials' colors into their corresponding spot in the palette. So now this palette preserves the original, color scheme of the game, but then just to, play around, it's not a highly tuned color scheme, but I've been playing around with this where I just kind of started to mess with all those colors and made more of a pastel version of them. So those, if viewers have seen what the game looks like previously, I'm using this pastel theme, and so you'll notice the game looks very different now, and that the green blocks are not that teal color now, that they're these kind of pastel lime green on the inside. So it's just, I've been kind of like fiddling with all the different colors. So like the skybox, instead of being black now, when it peeks through the cracks, you can see they're blue. And this is not not a tuned theme, but just kind of representative of what we can do now.
Yeah. What I like most of all about it, like you mentioned, is that it also will, for people who are colorblind, you can have like a theme to cover that. And I think that's fantastic because there's actually a lot of. I used to work at a company where one of the heads of the company was colorblind, and so he was very focused on making sure that like it would be accessible to people who had that. And it was great because it brought into mind for me is like, as someone who's not colorblind, I was like, oh, I never even thought about that before. But yeah, let's make this more enjoyable, more inclusive. More people can come in and enjoy the game. They're not going to be held out because of something like that. So I think that's great that we got that already in the game.
It's neat too because there's different forms of colorblindness as well. So we can really make one that's really optimized for each type of colorblindness, and there's other there's visual impairments that some folks with low vision capabilities need higher contrast, for example. So being able to, but then high contrast, some people gives them a headache. So there's no like one size fits all theme. And so it's really nice to be able to have that as a lever that it's really perfect for the game we're making, and that we're trying to make classes that appeal to very different personas, et cetera. The dream of grandpa, mom, and child high-fiving after a game. And somebody pointed out, it's not just mechanics that catch different personas and that appeal to different types of folks. So this is just one more dimension that will hopefully allow us to reach a broader market with different classes.
Yeah, you were also. Yeah, go ahead.
So that's what were you saying, Matt?
Oh, you were mentioning the cell types as well.
That's right. So let's see. I think brain cell. I can pull that one up. So we introduced now a cell type system. And this was pulled in because a big priority right now in development is the protect mission, and giving players in our minimum viable product some replayable mission type that they can go into and have some variance. So that every time they play it, it's different. They're receiving different threats, coming in with a different squad, receiving and in a different environment. So we want to be able to randomly pull from a library of different cells. And we needed a system that could define all the things that could be different about a cell. So here's one of our first cells, a brain cell. And it has nerve flora in it, of course. And then as you can see that we're just going to be able to change the skybox model. So that's the outer membrane that's kind of undulating. That's the volume control arena. The nucleus prefab. So that's the little cage-like structure that you see, and that's where the crystal spawns within that. And then the cytoplasm prefab. So that's currently our snow or the shards. Those all point at the crystal, and they give you that kind of near field reference frame, so you can see where you're going and get a sense of speed. And then far away, they kind of end up giving a kind of a star field look. But those are all models in the game. Those are all kind of definitional parts of the environment. And so by changing them and having a library of different membranes and nuclei and shards, then hopefully the environment itself, in addition to the flora and fauna, really just feels wholly different every time you go into a different cell, which then add a lot of replayability to those different mission types that use these as their environments. And then the last thing, so I picked that up, but a big blocker was that I really want to be able to like hand people a phone right now and have them play our new introductory character, the Sparrow. So the work that Angelo we just saw there in terms of having the model really working, and not just this jacked up Manta model that we had before, but also right now one of the things stopping us there is that the UI for the Sparrow isn't working. So I was starting to build that up, and again, it has new resources like heat, and that would require me to kind of build on an old, highly riddled with tech debt system in the way that our resources were working. So it was yet another opportunity. Instead of taking the time to build on something that's not great. Let's revamp it and make it something more sustainable and that we can build upon. So I think even so, it's been a while. So the Sparrow, when you last saw it, we had the beginnings of its skyburst rockets. Those now create like a little explosion. Let's see, shoot them, and then they make a nice burst of volume there. And then its boost, you can see it's now actually building heat, and so that little dial is our just little prototype display. And then as I overheated, now I slowed down, and then I have to wait till that heat drains before I can fly again.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
And so the way we were doing things before is we just had these like locked in resources like ammo, boost, energy. So I would have had to create yet another one. So we just made a much more general system now where you can just create a list of resources, and then you have a general resource class that you can just serialize whatever resources you want. And then anything that latches onto that just needs to know which index it's using, which pros and cons there. But for the most part, we think this is a more scalable system. So you can see that they're, instead of having
there we
fixed
go.
resources, you can just add a new resource, name it whatever you want, and then hook it up to whatever display you want and define its features. And then all you have to know is that this is the third resource. So any ability that uses that resource, you just put in index 2 because it starts at 0.
Cool.
There you go. So that's so now that system's working, I finished Dolphin. Now I'm working on Sparrow, and then I'll just hit the other 4 ships and then start working on their in-game UI.
Cool. All right, so this is excellent. We're doing good. We're doing good here. So just to wrap up with, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go around. I'm just going to ask people what they're planning on working on going forward, like the immediate next steps. Garrett, you kind of teased that, but I'll come back to you in a second anyways. For Will, like, what do you got on your plate for the next week or so, next couple weeks?
Definitely those videos. I have a lot of personal life events that do need tending to that would ultimately have a priority over that. That being said, once there's some certain details that are given on like the spec of those videos, I'm able to execute on them very, very quickly. Thanks to, I'm not sure if it was covered in one of the previous videos, but Emmanuel's sort of like animation tool. I guess I'll explain it in very simple terms. Very long story short, a very, very good Froglet member, Emmanuel, made this really cool system where you can play a game of Cosmic Shore, and you will save the movements that you did in that game, and then when you exit that game, you can input those saved movements into the next game and have an object do those exact same things, so that then you can like take a camera and just kind of point it at that object and observe it doing all these things. And it's really good for essentially fabricating a game environment, because, you know, I'm not able to just code an AI to be like, do exactly these things in this exact way at this exact same time. Instead, I can just do it myself, pause, and then sort of look at what just happened. Very, very useful. That'll be fun to get a lot of mileage out of. And then, I guess I alluded to it earlier, but any QA related things, I'm generally just called upon by Mr. Garrett over here, and I just get right to it, find 3 more issues, and try to wrap up the first one and make his life a little bit harder. But it's fun for everyone. So.
Okay, Angelo.
Yeah, so after I finish importing this the Sparrow ship into the Unity project and getting that all rigged up, I'm going to be working on the flora and the fauna for a bit and concepting out like a lot of like the vegetation or like the creatures that you're going to be seeing throughout Cosmic Shores. I have one more ship to do as well, but I'm saving that until after I do some concepting to get some of that out of the way first, because I'm pretty confident I can do the final ship relatively quickly, so I'm not in a super rush to get that done by like tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty confident they can get it done quickly too,
Oh, yeah.
based on what we've seen so far. It's
Are these new flora and fauna, or are they revisits to existing ones that we have?
Pretty sure it's like a mix of both, because Garrett's kind of giving me the option to rework some of like the previous stuff, but also concepting a lot of new stuff, because one of the things I'm good at is like really fast concepting, so I can get a lot of different ideas out at once, and then we can pick through it and see.
We saw the airplane graveyard. That is very true.
There's gonna be the Flora graveyard is next. Just
Nice.
you wait.
That's we'll have prints of those made, eventually.
Yeah.
That I can put up there. All right, Garrett. Anything else you wanted to add or bring up as well? You're the
Yeah.
one who's like lift like the Atlas that's holding up the whole company on your shoulders. So like I know there's a lot of stuff that you're doing that even like you forget about. So
That last part is at least true. There's definitely a lot I'm doing to forget about. That's it. My big priority is finishing out. Now that I have this system and it's working, make all characters resources working great, so that I don't have to circle back and touch it. So there's no like half-baked parts of the classes with respect to at least their resources. And then do the same thing with their UI. Make sure that every class's in-game UI is actually respected, at least at a mechanical level. So then a designer can come in and replace all of the assets and make each class's UI differently, etc. But they have a clear place to just put in a placeholder, replace a placeholder image.
Ready for iterations, yeah.
Say again?
I was ready for iterations on that, yeah.
Exactly. And then my priority will be, like I said, making sure that we have a good Sparrow experience. So impromptu, if Will's out at a Tech Week conference or something, and he can show someone the game and put them into a Sparrow mini game, and they're just flying around, killing flora and fauna, and just having a simple good time would be. That's some low hanging fruit that will be an important milestone going, in the short term, to just because we've discovered Sparrow is such a good introductory experience. So bringing that experience to mobile and being able to show that impromptu would be nice. And then the big thing that we want for the MVP by end of year is that playable mission type. So really getting that so that we have some threats being created for that mission, so that every time you play it, you're pulling from you have difficulty levels that are respecting a threat pool. So you have like it's trying to reach, based on your difficulty level, it's trying to reach a certain threat level. So it's actually pulling random flora and fauna of random difficulty levels until their cumulative threat level gets to the threat level that your difficulty level is set by.
All right, cool. Well, excellent. I'm glad we got a chance to get together and put this show together. Thank you to Angel and Will for joining us. Hope we get to see you again soon. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And we will see you in the next devlog. So have a good evening.